Good afternoon, class. This is going to be Lesson 2, Case Study and Role-Specific Application. Moving into the introduction, the chosen aviation role that this incident is covering is going to be aircraft maintenance, and the human factors incident that we're going to specifically be looking at that caused this is going to be complacency. Complacency is a very critical role in aircraft maintenance, and the FAA goes into how almost all maintenance errors, and as you can see, 80% of maintenance errors in the aviation community can be traced to human factors, specifically complacency. And the National Business Aviation Association stresses that the best way to get after this is by double checking, staying engaged, holding each other accountable. And so we're going to be looking at how complacency was present in this case study and how they were not utilizing the National Business Aviation Association's suggestion of avoiding complacency. The case study that we're going to be looking at is a case that was experienced firsthand by Senior Master Sergeant Bell, who has 24 years of aircraft maintenance active duty experience. The incident was an F-35 downlock spring incident in Kadena, where complacency overall caused the aircraft to slide off the runway and caused major damage to the aircraft, but we're going to go into more details in the next slide. So we're going to be going into a little bit more background of what this case study is. The incident occurred at Kadena Air Force Base in Japan in the aircraft maintenance in 2006. On the F-16s, there's this reoccurring 200-hour inspection. So every 200 hours that the aircraft flies, you have to do this inspection called phase, where you're doing deep inspections and you're completing hundreds of inspections of looking at components. And one of these tasks that you have to accomplish is inspecting the downlock springs, and you find the serial number and you have to compare that serial number to the one that's listed in the TO, and then the TO will then tell you what maintenance task is then required based off the serial number that you have. And often these serial numbers on this aircraft is either painted over or covered in grease. So the TO calls out that you must either remove the paint or remove the grease in order for you to find the serial number so you know the correct maintenance action to be done. So unfortunately, a lot of these serial numbers were covered in paint, and it resulted in complacency being formed as they were not removing the paint, they were not removing the grease, and in result, they weren't doing the maintenance task that was required because they didn't know what they had to do for each aircraft. They just were skipping this step altogether. And as you can see in the pictures, on the top one we have a picture of the F-16, and then the bottom one is a picture of where that downlock spring is, just so that you can have a visual of what we're looking at. So going into the specifics of how this incident occurred and what actually happened. So in 2006, this aircraft was coming into land, and the landing gear extended like it was supposed to, but once it touched the ground, that downlock spring did not keep that landing gear center, and it caused the aircraft to hit the ground. The landing gear failed, and it slid off the runway. And there was significant significant damage to the aircraft. Grass went into the intake. There was damage to the underbelly because it did slide on the gravel from the runway, and it did slide on the grass. And there was significant landing gear damage from the landing gear failing. And during the incident report that was accomplished to determine the cause, it was discovered that the downlock springs was the cause. The downlock springs failed, which caused the landing gear to fail, which caused the incident. And then the investigation also showed that there is a specific tester for these springs that these maintainers are supposed to be utilizing, and that tester wasn't even known. Nobody even knew that this tester was present in maintenance. So it was revealed that complacency was there. This task was not being accomplished, and there was also testers that can help this specific task be done easier that was not being utilized. So looking into the analysis of the human factors, what human factor was present? and complacency was the main human factors that was contributing to this incident. Complacency caused the maintainers to not complete the inspection correctly. It caused them to skip this step altogether because they was a phase inspection where they're looking at hundreds of different components, and this one was just another one that they do all the time, and they chose not to do it. And if they would have completed this task, it would have caused this aircraft incident to not occur. And then looking at James 4:17, it states, "Therefore to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin." And so that's saying if you know that you need to do something and you're choosing not to do it, you're making that ethical decision to skip this step, you are sinning. Each member evaluated the situation and made a poor ethical decision to not fully do the inspection. And whether they realized they were making that evaluation, it unfortunately was occurring. And all it could have taken is one person to remember James 4:17, to remember that you must be making these ethically right decisions every single day with every single decision that you're making in aircraft maintenance, because it is a very, very dangerous job, and ethical decisions are imperative to keep everybody safe. And all it could have taken is one person to question why they were not doing this task, to make that correct, ethically right decision to avoid this incident from occurring. So I ask you to look at these 4 questions and really think about how you would answer them. And these 4 questions is, what factors in the maintenance culture at Kadena Air Force Base do you think allowed complacency to be created and eventually spread? How do you think maintenance leaders at Kadena Air Force Base could have intervened earlier to prevent this incident? Do you think young maintainers felt pressure to not speak up due to being taught to skip this step by senior maintainers? And how would you balance that respect for rank with safety? And then finally, how might a focus on a servant leadership have presented this incident? So as you think about those deep discussions and the deep questions that we just went through in this whole lesson, the key lessons that we should be taking away is that complacency is contagious. It spreads. All it takes is one person to start skipping it and teaching the next, and there you know everybody is complacent. Key lesson is a TO is a non-negotiable. It is there to keep everybody safe, and you must read it and follow it with every single task. And that ethical decisions matter. It keeps us safe, and you should be making an ethically right decision every single time. And that leadership sets the tone. If leadership isn't forcing and talking about safety and not trying to rush, then unfortunately sets a bad tone where complacency and safe, bad ethically decisions can be present. And then next we're going to be looking at how conclusion is how human factors knowledge can improve safety and performance. And so we've learned that you can battle complacency by being able to identify risks before incidents. So identify what are we doing, and we're not completing this task, what can result from us not doing that task, and being able to identify it before it happens. And then applying error management to battle complacency. So like the NBA said, applying error, double checking, increasing communication, staying vigilant. And then safety is the #1 priority over tempo and production. Yes, we have our goals, but that does not mean that that goal outweighs staying safe. And then finally, culture of integrity, and being able to lead by example and always have integrity present. But thank you for coming to the lesson 2. I hope that you all learned something and we are all better in our jobs from this lesson.